Good morning and welcome to the Yuba Water Agency Board of Directors meeting on July 5th, 2022. Can we please have roll call?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's start with Director Blazer.
Here.
Director Vasquez.
Here.
Director Bradford.
Here.
Director Matthews.
Here.
Director Fuhrer.
Yes.
Director Hasty is currently absent. We expect him to dial in shortly. And Director Fletcher is absent today.
Okay, thank you. Director Vasquez, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, first item up on the agenda this morning is a closed session conference with agency designated labor negotiator regarding employee organization, and it'll probably be about 15 minutes or so. So we'll go to closed session and then we'll be back out. Okay, we're going to go ahead and resume the meeting, and nothing to report out from closed session. And so next up on the agenda is public comment.
I'll read the
Thank you.
spiel. Good morning, Mr. Chair and board members. Public comment is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board of directors on any subject matter that is not on the meeting agenda and it's within the board's subject matter jurisdiction. Public comment periods are limited to 3 minutes per person, and the total amount of time for public comment is 15 minutes. Persons participating by way of a video conference or teleconference shall ensure their audio is muted at all times, except when the board chair announces public comment periods. At those designated times, members of the public wishing to speak shall enable their audio and state their name for the record. When multiple members of this public wish to speak, the clerk will determine the order of speakers and announce their names accordingly. To ensure proper conduct, the board reserves the right to mute the audio and video of any member of the public violating generally accepted principles and decorum of official public meetings. We'll start with anyone in the room. Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. First up, we have Ms. Karen Liggett.
Karen Liggett, Marysville, and I wanted to say one thing that I've noticed. This board has been very unprofessional as far as dealing with and getting into other people's business with the North Yuba Water Board. And as far as them, they have not came here to tell you guys what to do, that you guys are incompetent like you guys have been doing them, and it's unprofessional. You guys need to get back on track. Like I keep saying, stay in your lane. And they can't do their work if you guys keep interrupting them, and with you guys making decisions for them as far as work. They can't pipe the ditch if water's going down. That's going to delay their work. They need to go ahead and get busy and do their work and let you guys do yours, because you guys got enough to do. You guys got enough legal issues and being corrupt with the fellowship and with the pot growers. Enough. You guys got to get back on track and be professionals instead of being unprofessional. And on that, and also, if you guys didn't know it, the FOF, a lot of their members have GoFundMe accounts. They're collecting free money to do all this. So that I thought I'd let you guys know, because I found out a lot of the FOF members, which is the cult, in case somebody doesn't know what it is, that they've been getting free money to harass people, including you guys. So I thought I'd let you guys know. So the corruption needs to stop, and you guys need to start being professionals.
Thank you, Karen. Next up, we have Marie Kay.
Marika Fernay, Organ House. Dear Yuba Water Agency, I hope all of you had an enjoyable weekend. I did. Though as I write, there are airplanes going over to attack a fire in Bangor. That was yesterday. If and when we would have the irrigation ditches running, which we don't, many of us would be able to evacuate while the gravity pressure of the ditch water would keep sprinklers on the roof and around the house running. It is not only food safety, it's about safety in all of its meaning, including keeping the water rights safe for Yuba County. We had a really nice interview the other day with Food and Water Watch, and I shared the article with you if you want a copy. That came out last week, and your manager is also quoted extensively. It's called "In California, Water Wars Threaten Local Food Systems." In the meantime, we saw your fantastic offer together with South Feather to broker a short-term solution for us that would have resulted in water for us already for a few weeks now. But North Yuba had the audacity to turn a very generous offer down in order to ask for more free stuff, or so it seems. How do you feel about that? How do you think we feel when we read that you and South Feather were trying to take care of us and our own little special district wouldn't let you? Some of us of Food and Water Coalition went ahead and signed a contract with South Feather to buy surplus water from them. This needs to be wheeled through North Yuba facilities. My hopes are not very high at this point for them to agree even on this little gesture. But if you manage to invite Manager Maupin back to your table, please remember that we are not particularly interested in details of a long-term solution yet. We have a much bigger need of an ad hoc solution, a right here and now solution. As your plan with South Feather shows, there's currently unused capacity in the ditch. Water could run towards us right now. North Yuba refuses to play and hold its customers still hostage. It looks like we are being used by them as leverage to squeeze more money out of your pockets. Maybe it even works like that, I don't know. North Yuba approved a budget of $6 million of expenses on $2 million of income, while their total cash in hand is $3.5 million. And they had no budget workshop, asked no questions apart. The only question they asked was how to go after Marika, Rulik, Charles personally. What legal action to take after these people that have the audacity to ask for PRA requests. They approved it in 5 minutes. Something's not right, and I hope you agree. I wish you a wonderful week.
Thank you. Charles Sharp.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
Charles Sharp. I hope everybody's having a great day today. Gentlemen, I have to apologize. I thought if you voted on making a grant, you would actually make the grant. This appears not to always be the case. From a review of the North Yuba Water District accounting, the district has not received any of the $104,000 grant you voted on in November and earmarked to pay for the consultants, Provost and Pritchard. Nor does it seem the agency has any report from these consultants. This is an excellent decision. Don't give the district money until you have the goods. North Yuba is, on the other hand, has been paying Provost and Pritchard for something. Would a better title for this grant have been paying for consultants to tell Manager Maupin he cannot sell the water? Gentlemen, I feel obligated to inform you that if you make any more grants to the North Yuba Water District with its current dysfunctional management structure, you will incur the wrath of Mariki. Believe me, you do not want to make Mariki unhappy. South Feather has characterized North Yuba as having gone rogue. This is too generous. The letter Hawthorne sent to you is disingenuous, misleading, and with intentional false statements. This public agency is not acting in good faith. It is acting in very bad faith and doing real damage to the people in the foothills. Since 2017, the agency has been directly involved in the affairs of the district. I've seen this happen. I was there witnessing all of this. Had this not happened, there's a good possibility the voters might have mitigated this dysfunctional public agency and brought better governance to this troubled water district. The Yuba Water Agency bears some responsibility for the mess the North Yuba Water District has become. Gentlemen, please fix it. Bring your power and resources to bear down and help correct the situation that you have played a role in creating. There's an article in the Appeal Democrat. NYWD irrigation customers left dry. South Feather offers to supply water as NYWD stalls. Indeed, South Feather has honored their offer, and I have signed a contract with South Feather to provide me with water. The Yuba Water Agency has the power to see that this water can be delivered. I would like to ask you to use that power. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone else in the room? Okay, I don't see anyone online either at this time. So we'll go ahead and wrap up public comment and we will move on to the consent agenda. Any comments or questions from board members on the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, I'll move approval.
Okay.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Any public comment on the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Thank you. Let's start with Director Fuhrer,
Yes.
Director Hasty,
Yes.
thank you, Director Blazer,
Yes.
Director Matthews,
Yes.
Director Fuhrer, I'm sorry, Director Vasquez,
Yes.
my first day. Director Bradford.
Yes.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Great, thank you. Next, we will move on to discussion items, starting with item 4, consider approval of amendment number 1 to the Yuba County Water Agency Emerald Cove Marina lease agreement. And Joanna?
I think she's on. Joanna Lassard.
See her on there.
I'm going to take item number 4.
Hi, can you hear me? Sorry
Yeah,
about that.
You're
Good
good.
morning.
That's okay. Thanks.
Hi, sorry, everyone. Actually, Jim Lynch, I think, is in the room. He's going to present this item to the board.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. And good morning. In 2021, the Emerald Cove Marina on New Bullets Bar Reservoir approached YWA to amend the 2016 lease agreement it has for operation maintenance of the marina on New Bullets Bar Reservoir. The maintenance would update some of the outdated information in the lease agreement and would also allow some enhancements such as the addition of houseboats on the reservoir. These all seem reasonable. However, modification of the lease agreement, which is not under FERC's jurisdiction, separate from the FERC license, the existing license and the new license, does affect conditions in the existing license and the new license and is a concern to the Forest Service. So YWA staff with Emerald Cove Marina approached the Forest Service and worked with them on modifications to those conditions in the existing license, Exhibit R, the rec plan, and the rec plan that was approved for the new license. Those modifications are relatively minor. Forest Service is in agreement with them. We're expecting a letter of concurrence for them within the next couple of weeks. The update to the agreement does not commit YWA to any additional funding other than some minor monitoring, which staff believes is beneficial to YWA going into the new license. At this time, I believe Joanne would support that. The recommendation is that the board allow the general manager to execute the marina lease agreement consistent with the description I just gave you, contingent upon Emerald Cove Marina, number 1, certifying that it's got all the necessary permits and approvals to perform the upgrades, and FERC and the Forest Service's approval of these modifications to the license. I can answer any questions you may have.
Any questions or comments from the board?
Through the chair,
Yes.
Chairman Gary, I'm going to abstain on this one. Since I own a houseboat up there, there are actually impacts to the owners up there. And there are some of them who don't want more buoys and some who want less, blah, 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 blah. So I think on this one, because I have a houseboat up there, I'm going to abstain. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Hasty. Any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a.
Chairman Bradford, we have Daniel and Scott from the marina. If there's any questions from the marina lessees.
Okay. Any questions?
I have a very, very minor request. I've been told by some older people, it would be, you might be already doing this, but to have a shuttle that would run up to the parking lot when the water gets down to a certain level, because it's kind of a tough hike to get down there. So if you can consider doing that certain times of the year, certain water levels, some older people would like that. Thanks.
Certainly.
I'm
I
one of
think
them. I would love to have that. You abstain.
some younger people would like that as well. I'm not sure that would be under the lease because actually the boat launch itself is part of the licensees recreation facilities.
Right.
But we'll consider that as we move forward with the existing license, rec plan, the existing license and the new license.
Yeah, it'd be more just general operations.
Certainly understand.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Thank you. Let's start with the Director Matthews.
Yes.
Director Bradford,
Yes.
Director Fuhrer,
Yes.
Director Blazer,
Yes.
and Director Vasquez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Through the chair, just a quick public comment. I just want to thank the marina operators. They really are. I mean, I've been up there for decades, different times, and these guys are doing a fantastic job. So just wanted to let you guys know that.
Thank you. Next, moving on to item 5, consider approval of job descriptions and corresponding salary schedule for fiscal year 22-23 for senior hydrologist, senior environmental specialist, water resources manager, and hydro compliance analyst pursuant to the proposed budget for fiscal year 22-23 approved by the board on June 21st, 2022. Morning, Curtis.
Good morning, and I do not have a PowerPoint. So this is a quick item following up the proposed budget, which you guys entertained at the last board meeting that included a personnel allocation adjustment for these positions. It was a reclass of supervising hydrologist and a senior hydrologist, and then adding one, the flexible recruitment strategy for environmental specialist or senior environmental specialist, a water resources manager, and then the reclass from a compliance engineer to a hydro compliance analyst. What we're doing today is following up with the completed job descriptions and an update to the salary chart on the heels of the personnel allocation adjustments that were approved at the last board meeting. So if there's no questions, I'll keep it quick.
Any questions from the board?
So move.
Okay, I have a
Second.
first and I have a second. Any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Thank you. Let's start with Director Fuhrer,
Yes.
Director Hasty,
Aye.
Director Matthews,
Aye.
Director Blazer,
Yes.
Director Bradford,
Yes.
Director Vasquez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Curtis. Next, moving on to item 6, receive an update regarding the economic development strategic plan and provide direction to staff as may be appropriate. Terry, are you going to introduce it? or-
I will introduce it. Certainly our stellar economic development consultant team, Lon Hadamia, Jake Palumbo, and Doug Svensson don't need any introduction to you. But they have come here today for 2 reasons. One is we like to bring economic development updates to you on a periodic basis. Just want to remind you that I always say economic development is a long, slow, continuous process. So on the surface, it might not look like a whole lot is going on, but a lot is going on. And so that's one reason I invited them here today to give you an update. The second reason is that to prepare for the strategic development priority discussion on August 2nd. As you well know, we're taking one strategic priority at a time with the board at every board meeting. This afternoon or later this morning, we're going to be talking about strategic priority number 4. There are 6 total, and the 6th one is about community impact and economic development. As you might imagine, things have changed quite a bit in this area since 2015 when we wrote that and you approved that, the board approved that strategic priority. So I wanted to make sure you had the most recent information of where we stand on our economic development efforts and to remind you of the work that this team has done, especially in prioritizing the projects for the whole county and of course for us, of the projects that are going to have the most impact, positive impact on the community. So I wanted you to have that information kind of fresh in your mind for the discussion on August 2nd. So with that short introduction, I'll turn it over to Lon.
Terry, thank you again for that nice introduction. Let me, Mr. Chairman, directors, it's always a pleasure to be here. I think it was about a year ago that we gave you the update of the plan, and we thought it was important to give you another update as to what we achieved over the last 12 months regarding that plan. I'm joined today by my colleagues. I have General Jake Palumbo is with me. I think this is the first time many of you may have met him in person. And I'm glad that he's able to join us today, as well as my other partner, Doug Svensson. And we're going to quickly go through a few slides. And if you have questions, please feel free to stop us. We hope this was an informal discussion and certainly ask any questions you might have. Let me move through this. So we're going to provide some project updates and a discussion of the priority development that Terry just mentioned. We think it's important to review that once again to show you how we reach conclusions as to the priority of some of these projects. Quickly, let me walk through some of the project updates that we certainly are engaged in over the last 12 months. We work towards helping and diversify the power grid as an economic development tool for the county. I know those discussions are ongoing and we will continue to be engaged with that, certainly showing the importance for economic development for all parts of the county. We also worked on supporting the development of South County infrastructure. We've been engaged in those discussions along the way. Again, those are critical for economic development for not only South County, but for the entire county. Again, continued communications with Beale Air Force Base, and again, General Palumbo will touch upon those more specifically in just a minute. We also work very closely at supporting the development of a university cooperative research facility in the city of Wheatland, and I'll touch upon that also briefly in a moment. And we also added quantitative analyses of airport industrial development opportunities, as well as engage in economic impact analyses on various projects, including the Goldfields Parkway, the airport, and Ponderosa Park in Brownsville. Let me move now to kind of a Beale Air Force Base update, and I'm going to turn to General Palumbo to provide a more specific layout of what has been achieved over the last 12 months. Jake?
Thank you, Lon. Good morning, Chair and directors. Good to see everybody in person. It is the first time I've been in your conference room. It's impressive, and I like that. It looks good for the county and for the water agency. Thanks to Willie and Terry for letting me continue to be on the team, and for Lon and Doug. They are great teammates, and I think we are doing good, strong work for the county and for the people of the county. And we'll go through some of the people in the county who happen to be still in the Air Force as part of my update. We have maintained over the last couple of years high-level communications with the Air Force, and I'll go through some of that with you. We talk about the Air Force as Beale Air Force Base, but what Lon and I have been doing over the last few years is to try and maintain communications at the higher echelons of the Air Force, and I'll go through that. I am also reminded that today, as I go out to the base and Lon and I talk with the vice commander and the commander of the base, that this is the third commander that we're going to talk to during my watch on this team. And that in itself provides or presents a challenge to you, the board members, to understand that the turnover at the base is regular, it's constant, it's routine, and to maintain that relationship is not easy. So therefore, what Lon and I do for the water agency and for the county is important, because we're on number 3 right now during my watch. One of the other agencies that we did talk to during this time period was the Air Force Civil Engineering Center, headquartered in San Antonio, Texas. And we've maintained a regular communication with General John Allen, who is the commander of the Air Force Civil Engineering Center. And he has a direct reporting element called the Office of Energy Assurance, which is headquartered back in Washington, D.C. And Willie and I, Terry and I, have also spoken with Kirk Phillips, who's the director of the Office of Energy Assurance back in the Pentagon area. And that dialogue has been useful to us to understand corporately where the Air Force is going with respect to maintenance of its infrastructure on the bases. And that's why, as we said a few years ago, when I talked to the leadership at the water agency, really many of the things that you all want to discuss with the base actually need to be discussed at a higher level or at a different level in an area where it just is back in the East Coast, either at the Pentagon or in San Antonio. We maintain a good, regular cadence of communications with the leadership at Beale. And again, today I'm going to talk to the new commander, incoming commander, sitting commander, Colonel Jeff Church, who comes from the Pentagon and the office of the F-35 program office. So it's nice to know that we're getting leadership at Beale that comes from the East Coast, where a lot of the corporate decisions are made with respect to these bases. However, planning teams are the way that you really get things looked at and socialized to make sure that it can work in regards to what the Air Force is going to do. And that's where Lon and I spend a good amount of time making sure we are talking to the planners who have a regular interaction with the Civil Engineering Center, and they also talk to WAPA, the Corps of Engineers, and those other places. In our discussions, we constantly remind the leadership in the Air Force that we can be the conduit for them back to the community in order to make sure Beale's priorities are reviewed. Beale Air Force Base has a prioritized list, and that list is what we bring back to you all to make sure you understand where their priorities are, because they are in effect a small municipality, if you will, in the area here, and they've got things they need to do, but sometimes they aren't very good at telling you what they need. And so one of the things we do in that regard is to remind you that the housing issues on the base are still in some ways acute, if not just nagging issues for them to be able to house their airmen and their families close by. So we have that regular discussion with you. Director Vasquez and I spoke about that this morning as to how we can make sure that that message gets back to the base about the housing starts in the area that are so impressive. We had a good discussion here with a previous commander at the base, Lieutenant Colonel Mick Cameron, who presented to you about some of the issues that the families are having on the base, and more particularly the dependence of the families and the very, very skilled labor force that comes in to the base for a couple of years and then leaves. And we do think that that initiative is underway and really will be a significant way to tell the base that the community cares. We know that the base infrastructure is struggling, has been for years, and there are areas where it needs assistance, and then there are areas where it just needs funding back from the corporate level at the Pentagon. And that understanding of how the base's infrastructure needs the community, the county, the cities, the municipalities' ability to assist is invaluable, I think, for your planning. There's a number of opportunities that are still on the horizon for us to consider as we look at what Beale is looking for. However, I will continue to tell the board that Beale's mission is important to the nation. It really does have to do with the day-to-day world events that you see on the news each day, whether it's just quietly doing its intelligence gathering mission or in some ways supporting a new effort like the U.S. European Command efforts to try and deal with what's going on in Ukraine and in Central Europe. Beale's mission evolves. It continues to be important to what we as Americans need. And we should take into account that it's not always about airplanes that are flying in and around the Beale Air Force Base skies. It's more, it's command and control, it's information, it's moving information. And that's where we continue to take time to understand what's evolving out on the base. There is a federal lab, as we've mentioned before to you. It's called the Air Combat Command Federal Lab. It's funded by the Air Force. It may ultimately be funded at even a higher level at the Pentagon, but that's underway and in discussion. And that lab is in connection to other national labs. And that's where this understanding of what is happening inside the base is important for us, for you, so that you can realize that there are potential opportunities for University of California and other research entities to partner into that effort, but it takes time to develop that. The base has a desire to get to know you. They do. It's true. I'm rhyming for a reason. It's important that the interaction continues to happen, as the chair and I spoke earlier today. And as you all understand, they do need to interact better. It's just the last couple of years have been difficult for personal interaction. And so some of the things that we've done are to try and maintain or to redevelop those relationships for state and local communities, and especially you guys as the leaders. This note about the base returning to a more traditional command structure is probably noted by you, the board members, but it is a significant event that happened. They tried an experiment at Beale Air Force Base over the last 2 years to try and streamline the way the base leadership was organized and populated, and it didn't go as well as they had wanted. And so they're going back to a much more traditional base structure of command and control with a wing commander / base commander, the group commanders, the colonels that work for him or her, and then squadron commanders who do the mission around the world with various specific mission sets. Why is that important to you? Because it's a change that's going on out there that might seem transparent, but you should be aware that they are having to reorganize themselves for the second time in 2 years, and it's not easy. The departing wing commander encouraged us, Colonel Heather Fox, encouraged us to stay the course on what we have been working on with you all and the Water Agency and the University of California. And the projects based on power, water, fire have good substance for the Air Force to be interested in, and we can draw up memorandums of understanding and other various things that will connect more directly and more officially to the base if we stick with power, water, fire. And those areas are your wheelhouse. They are your specialties. And that's why we know that we've got something that will work between the outgoing commander previous 2 years ago, the outgoing commander 1 month ago, and the current commander who's been in position for about a month now. Those issues matter to them, and we can continue to work that. The new commander supports follow-on activities. I had a chance to talk to him before he got to Beale. He's a returnee to Beale, Colonel Jeffrey Church. He's been here before as a subordinate commander, so that's the goodness of what goes on at Beale, is oftentimes you don't realize that the people that are coming back were here 4 years ago. They just didn't interact with the community that much, but now they should. Now they might. Now they will. And that's where Lon and my role is for you as the Water Agency and the board, is to understand we do need to continue to talk to them and make sure that we understand where their priorities are and what these projects that could formally connect us to the base and the base to us and the base to the University of California. Those kinds of projects are the ones that we now know matter, and they will stay with them. How closely will they resource them? To be determined. How closely will they attend all planning meetings? To be determined. But we know from our staff and from your members of your staff, Jackie or the others, that we can maintain that level of cadence. And we can do it face-to-face now that we've gotten more face-to-face meetings available. But you as the board and for the leadership at the Water Agency, we just need to stay the course. We're on the right subject matter, and those opportunities exist with respect to Beale, the Air Force Base. But as we've learned over the last couple of years, with respect to the Air Force, writ large, the corporate Air Force, and they're hard to understand, maybe harder than local government is. So the big Air Force is interested, but we've got to ask them, how can you participate? How will you participate? What kind of resourcing can we expect from you in that regard? I think that's my last slide. I'm going to let Lon talk about the relationship developing between us, our team, and the University of California system. And then I'll be glad to answer questions at the end on that with respect to what could be those possibilities for the Air Force relationship to the community through the research entities and research efforts that could happen as a result of these power issues, these microgrid issues, power grid issues. It could go to higher levels, well into the corporate level of the Air Force, but we just need to stay the course and keep the discussion going on. But again, it's a pleasure to see you all in person, and I turn it back over to Lon for the next step. Thank you.
I think this might be a good point to take a break, and if there are any questions from the directors for the general or what I've already highlighted so far.
Traffic seems to be a major issue. We have freeway coming in from 4 directions and no way to get through Marysville. How are you interacting with the SACOG or the people that do it?
I'll go ahead and answer that question. Director Matthews, I'm glad you brought that up. Doug and I just, matter of fact, completed a study for SACOG at transportation flows through Yuba and Sutter counties. We provided that initial report to a group last week. I'm happy to share that report with you. Taking a look at some investments locally, but also with SACOG priorities for enhancement for example, a Wheatland Parkway, Goldfields Parkway, other things on the Sutter County side as well too, that potentially can alleviate some of those traffic flow issues. Also importantly, the general and I talked about how Beal is important about in this whole calculus as regarding traffic. In order for them to continue to have the mission capability, they need to get their people on and off the base. And not only having housing locally, but having better roads in and out of Beal is also important. So our discussions with the leadership at Beal and with the Air Force are also critical to transportation issues throughout the county. And so we're going to continue to work that. There are federal funding sources that they have access to. I know the county has worked directly with them, but I think we can even engage further to determine what's most available. So in short answer, we're working that angle, that transportation issue from many different angles, from an economic development standpoint, but also directly consulting with SACOG. You have anything else to add?
Just Director Matthews, just that today I'm going to leave a short update on some of the utility and road projects that Terry's team helped me put together. And I'm going to leave that with the commander and let him look through it with his new staff. And many of the topics, or some of the topics, are road issues with respect to the base and how the base flows or impedes flows. So I think that may stimulate a little more discussion on how the base feels like they participate in the road issue. And it could provide some opportunity for more discussion in that, because roads matter to the base just like they do to every other worker in the community.
To the chair. We just finished repaving North Beale Road all the way to the base. And, you know, there's the water facility for Linda, the water plant. We can double the capacity on that with a flip of a switch. And there's also a sewer line down Burl Road to Goldfields Parkway from the freeway that's already been put in there. Just thought I'd let you know about that one.
Yeah, Director Vasquez, that's always helpful information. That's information that we definitely share with base leadership as well too. I know they've told us most recently that water and wastewater issues are not highest priority for them. But as we develop and build out South County infrastructure and county infrastructure, including North Beale Road, it's important for them to know that too, that again, access points to and from the base will all be better and further developed, not necessarily with even their involvement, but what you're doing as a county and as a water district. So I think all of this information is important to share in regular communications, and that's what we're hoping to continue to achieve.
Well, the Linda Water plant was the first shovel-ready project for Obama, and that was overbuilt to such a degree that you could double the capacity with no major expense.
General John Allen is the commander of the Civil Engineering Center in San Antonio. And his comments to me after a meeting that the general manager had with him were that he felt that the surrounding communities around the bases in the Air Force writ large needed to support the bases in things like utilities and sewer. And I said to him, that's not always the message that the communities get, but it might be a good one to refresh. And so our conversations are not only with the leadership at Beale, because sometimes they don't realize that the corporate level Air Force has changed. They've pivoted to try and take more advantage of community efforts like that. So that's an ongoing discussion, Director Vasquez, that we'll have with the commander out there in San Antonio, but he's not at Beale. He's in San Antonio. We just need to keep talking to him to let him know.
We'll send Doug Lofton down for you.
Any other questions? If not, let me continue. We have a few more slides to share with you, and then we can certainly open it back up for discussion. And I'm going to ask Doug Swenson to join me here in just a second. But one of the major achievements that I wanted to highlight for you that we accomplished this past year was the development of a collaborative university relationship with the University of California, and specifically UC Citrus. We're currently in the process of developing a memorandum of understanding between the Water Agency, the City of Wheatland, and the University of California Center for Information Technology Research in the Interest of Society. It's a 4-campus center. It's based at UC Berkeley, but UC Davis, UC Santa Cruz, UC Merced are also part of this. And they have a focus not only on information technology, but a lot of the types of important research that the Water Agency has been involved in the past. We've identified specific projects of mutual research interest and potential for positive economic development contribution within the county. For example, energy grid resilience, fire prevention, broadband, and many others as we continue this discussion. And so I think we'll be bringing forth hopefully an MOU that we can sign among these entities to continue this partnership. We're also in discussion with the Air Force to have them included among these as well too, but we can continue to proceed on 2 different fronts. Not only the needs of the Water Agency, but the needs of the Air Force and working with the University of California. What better resources within our own state to utilize? And we're very happy to have developed that relationship. Let me move on to a couple of other specific projects that we were engaged in this year. And I'm going to turn to Doug because this starts kind of the discussion about the prioritization that Terry had talked about previously. And the Yuba County Airport is probably a prime example of how we prioritize some things. Doug?
Thank you very much, Lon. Mr. Chair, members of the board, it's great to be with you this morning. One of the services that we provide as a team is technical analysis of potential projects so that we can provide a foundation of data for public agencies to make decisions about economic development investments. And I wanted to just highlight a few examples this past year of some of that work. We have spoken with you previously in our presentations on the economic strategy about the potential opportunities at Yuba Airport and the industrial sites that are available there. There are a number of infrastructure improvements that are already identified in terms of circulation, drainage, and sewer connections to further improve those sites and development opportunities. However, this past year, we worked with the airport director to identify 2 on-site road improvements that are essentially extensions of circulation on the airport property that would open up some additional acreage for potential industrial development. So those on-site roads, we estimate, would cost an additional $6 million, but open up another 68 acres of potential development in proximity to existing facilities on the airport, which would add the potential for another 1,000 jobs and a number of developments that could support future economic growth. That potential has a very positive economic fiscal benefit for the county potentially. And we've developed a scoring system in the strategy to help prioritize different projects. And the airport, because of its relatively small infrastructure investments that are needed, the high job potential, and the short-term nature of the market opportunities that go along with that, score very high. And we continue to feel that that's a very strong opportunity for the county in the short term and the long term. And we'll talk a little more about that scoring system in a moment. But I wanted to highlight a couple other examples. Earlier in the year, late last year, the county was looking at a potential proposal for a campground at Ponderosa Park as a way of creating a revenue stream to help long-term maintenance of the park. And there was the potential for a state Prop 68 grant to help fund the development. And so we provided them with a complete market analysis that included verification of the potential capital costs to do the project, what the operating costs might be, and what the net revenue potential might be, so that the county would have some independent data to work with in terms of evaluating that kind of project. And so we functioned as an information resource to county government in helping them make decisions about how to move forward with a key economic project in the foothills. Also, the county was in the process of developing an EDA application for funding for the Goldfields Parkway. And we helped them out with providing some economic analysis of what the potential economic benefits would be, particularly for the aggregates industry that's developed out there. Just to give you an example, for every 100 jobs directly there in the Goldfields area, creates another 29 jobs in business-to-business activity in Yuba County and 52 additional jobs in local serving retail and services jobs. So the economic benefits of that industry and that project go well beyond the direct jobs that are created. So again, these are just a couple of examples of ways that we're stand ready to provide independent economic analysis to help public agencies make decisions about those projects. And I think, Lon, did you want to?
We're going to talk a little bit about priority setting as we laid out for you at the initial stage. And you've seen this 5-year action plan before, but I thought it was instructive to bring it back again to show you the criteria that we continue to focus in on for, again, prioritizations of policy and action items as we move forward. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because you've seen this before, but these are the different factors that Doug, Jake, and I have considered as we prioritize these projects. And one of the projects I forgot to mention, Director Blazer, and that SACOG study that Doug and I just completed is the River Parkway's priority as well. We think that there's tremendous opportunity, and that's included in this plan, as well as what we recommended to SACOG in terms of further development. Let me move to kind of the next catalyst effects. I think you've seen this too. This highlights the 4 major areas of projects that we have highlighted in our plan: infrastructure and planning, technology, tourism, hospitality, and education. These are all connected by various catalyst effects, but also they all create a foundation for economic growth. And in order to prioritize projects, we had to take a look at the catalyst effects that each one of the projects have for the county. And let me turn to Doug to go back over how we developed some of that scoring. I know that Terry wants to focus in on that for your strategic planning purposes, but we wanted just to remind you again of the process we utilize to come up with the prioritization. Doug?
Thank you. This is a list, a partial list. We have 2 slides here of the variety of projects that we identified through the strategic planning process. And the column with the colored cells there are each of the 4 main strategy areas that Lon was just referencing. And the scoring system that we developed looks at objective criteria in terms of the number of jobs created, the quality of the jobs created, the fiscal benefit to local agencies in terms of tax base and service requirements, and a variety of factors like that. And it gives us the basis to score each of the projects and create an objective framework for evaluating what the priorities should be. And so from this, you can see that the higher number of checks obviously are higher priorities, and it involves a range of different strategic goals. So not only infrastructure, but technology, education and workforce development, and tourism in terms of the river trails and parkway planning. So each of the strategic areas is represented, but we're able to see where the high priorities are in terms of the leverage potential of each of these projects, and where we would recommend investments be made to move projects forward in the short term versus longer term. So includes each of those 5 factors in the prior chart that we had looked at. Here in terms of the phasing of the market opportunities, the economic development outcomes in terms of the jobs and the fiscal benefits, what's the funding that's needed, and also what's the staff resourcing that would be needed to really move these projects forward. What are the constraints, not only physical, but legal and regulatory? And finally, how do these projects leverage potential private investment so that we're not just doing public projects, but we're seeding the well for private investment throughout the county. So again, this is a system that we think can be well adapted to a variety of uses and frameworks, but it's based on these kinds of objective criteria.
So that concludes kind of our formal presentation today. Are there questions, issues? One of the things I want to mention before we turn to any of your questions is this is really a fluid process. The way we created it was to be able to add projects as we go along. And many of you have priorities that you see within your areas of the county, and we certainly can add those and prioritize them and score them in the same way that Doug has just mentioned. I know that we will continue to focus in on the priorities that we have established, but there is room for change and evolving opportunity. So I'll just leave it at that. Any questions that you have for Doug, the general or myself?
Questions or comments from the board?
Through the chair. Are you aware of the taxiway grant that the airport has received for expansion of the taxiways?
That wasn't specifically included in the information that we.
Just a heads up if you get a chance to talk to the airport.
We did talk to the director about constraints there might be on property on the airport in terms of needing to lease the sites versus sell them, and them needing to be part of the long range land use plan for the airport in order to really be available for economic development.
Any public comment on this item? Okay. Seeing none. Thank you, Lon, Doug, and Jake. We really appreciate the update and your efforts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will continue to provide you updates as time goes on, and your willingness to hear about these. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, next up is manager's report.
Okay, good morning. So normally I start out with New Bullard's Bar conditions, but I'm going to switch it up today. Annually, we have to test our emergency action plan for the dams we own, New Bullard's Bar, Our House, Log Cabin. And you don't know when that test is going to be. And you saw me walk out of the meeting here when Lon and Doug and Jake were giving their presentation. And that was the drill for the test of our emergency action plan. I just want to let you know, we had our drill today. It worked. They got a hold of the general manager. They'll let me know this, the mock conditions that are going on. So also it just proves that we have communication internally at the agency from the operators, the 24/7 control room, straight directly to the general manager. And there's a flow chart. I'm sure they're talking to the other folks in the agency operationally and testing all those communications. So just want to let you know, that's why I walked out of that's my excuse for walking out of the meeting. Okay, so now we will talk about New Bullard's Bar. We are at 840,000 acre feet of storage. That's 103% of normal to date. We've had 703,000 acre feet of inflow since October 1st, and that's 63% of average annual inflow year to date. So the forecasted generation revenue for May was 82,000 megawatt hours. Sorry, I said revenue. That's the actual generation. And the actual generation was 65,000 megawatt hours. So 82,000 projected, 65,000 generated. And our revenue for May was $8.5 million with a forecast of 5.2 million. So more revenue than projected, primarily due to energy prices, really driven by the price of natural gas. The Cal ISO average day ahead energy price for May at Colgate was $71.10, with the high being nearly $250 per megawatt hour and the low being slightly negative. Earnings for Yuba per megawatt hour of generation on average for May was $90. So we continue our routine maintenance for recreation. We're working with the Forest Service and Marina personnel to assist with Rice's fire support. That's pretty much over, but that was kind of active late last week. The Narrows 1 outage, amazingly, even with the fire conditions we had last week, which I'll get to in a minute, the Narrows 1 outage was completed early last Thursday. We have about 1,000 CFS flowing through Narrows 2, and Narrows 1 is flowing 620 CFS. Now we will get to the Rice's fire. So last Tuesday, the Rice's fire started just downstream of Colgate. It was actually on the Nevada County side of the river, downstream of Colgate, but upstream of Englebright and upstream of where the South Yuba River comes into Englebright. So it's really started just across the river from Colgate Powerhouse and a little bit downstream, but it was traveling or moving in an easterly direction parallel to the river. So kind of skirting the ridge line across the river from Colgate. So that was Tuesday afternoon. When we found out about it, we quickly evacuated Colgate Powerhouse and got our personnel to a safe location. We evacuated everyone except the actual control room operator. We let him stay in the control room at Colgate until we established operations from the Narrows 2 powerhouse. The Narrows 2 powerhouse is well downstream of Englebright Dam, so well out of the way of the fire in the opposite direction the fire was going. It is a backup control room, and so we got an operator there to take control of the project. Had full visibility and full control of the project, so things work seamlessly. Once that operator was established in Narrows 2, we evacuated the operator from Colgate. So around 5:30 in the evening, we had everyone out. 4:30, everyone out. 5:30, we had a follow-up call. Okay, now that everyone's safe, what does it look like for this evening? What are the threats? And really the threat was, the fire and burning across into Yuba County, across the river into Yuba County. And then also the fire causing an impact to the 230,000 volt lines, leaving Colgate, going to the valley. And what happens if those lines became disconnected and we had to shut down the plant? So at that point, we made a decision to send 2 operators back to the plant and set up one of the units. So disconnect one of the Colgate units, disconnect it from the grid to provide what I call house power, to provide standby power. In case the 230 volt lines got disconnected, we would still be powered at Colgate, still keep the batteries up, still keep our visibility. That was the key. If you lose power at Colgate and you drain the batteries within a couple hours, then the operator at Narrows 2 would no longer have visibility. He wouldn't have SCADA, wouldn't have operational control. Now, there's all kinds of protections at the plant. Plants will shut down. They'll do what they're supposed to do automatically. But we wanted to make sure we had visibility and control for the operator at Narrows 2. So at any rate, the following day looked like CAL FIRE had a handle on the fire. We went in and reconfigured the backup scenario. I know I'm giving you a lot of detail, but I want you to understand why we did what we did. The first evening, we had one of the units at Colgate provide the backup power at Colgate. It's the most reliable source. We have a standby generator, a diesel powered generator that we just installed last year. However, we haven't fully tested it with all circuits in the powerhouse. So we didn't want to put, it's brand new and it's ready to go, but we didn't want to put it as the backup source of power and then overtax it and have it cause the same problem we're trying to prevent. However, the next evening, CAL FIRE had control of the fire, we thought, so we went and we put that backup generator in control, put the second Colgate unit back online so we could be back in full generation. So the bottom line is, and here's the punchline of the story, for about 24 hours, we didn't have both units online. We had just one Colgate unit online. We met all of our water flow deliveries. We still generated and made revenue, but we made revenue with one unit instead of two. And that was to protect the units and protect control and visibility. But then the third day, CAL FIRE even had better control of the fire. The threat of it jumping the river was even less. So we reestablished operations in the powerhouse. Operator then reported there all weekend long. And then now today, evacuations were lifted yesterday. And today we're back to normal business as usual at Colgate. I want to thank the staff for acting quickly, keeping cool, calm heads. When you see flames across the river and you're, in a 2-mile road in a canyon, you can easily, jump to conclusions and act drastically. And everyone was calm and cool and had all the communication protocols needed to be safe and make all the right decisions. So I want to thank staff for handling it in a very efficient and safe manner. Okay, so Thursday, we had a little issue with the Narrows 2 powerhouse. We had a battery trouble alarm come in, and we're troubleshooting in the evening of Thursday, found that we could not find the problem. We couldn't find the source of the alarm. So Narrows 2 is disconnected from the grid and shut down until Friday morning. We put the unit back online Friday morning to try and diagnose the cause of the trouble, and the alarm would not come in. So it's very similar to taking your car to the mechanic when it's making a noise and then you can't get it to make the noise. So at any rate, there is something going on at Narrows 2. It's not unit threatening, but we will continue to try and diagnose that. In the last couple of weeks, we did have a bit of a heat wave. It wasn't as drastic as we thought it might be, and we had wonderful cool weather over the weekend. However, in the next few days, we will see another round of heat, moderate heat wave, like in the next 3 to 10 days. Okay, so some precipitation statistics here. The precipitation year, not the water year, but the precipitation year ended on June 30th, and Colgate Powerhouse precipitation ended at 86% of normal with 33.63 inches of precipitation. The water year is October 1st through September 30th, and the water year is 79% of normal. So 86 on the precipitation year, 79% on the runoff year. Pretty dang close. The year's a little bit shifted, but that's about what we've been looking at over the past year. Okay, the agency received a high volume of applications for staff accountant, and interviews have been scheduled. We continue to actively recruit for supervising electrical technician, environmental specialist, senior environmental specialist, and hydroelectric compliance analyst. HR is working with hiring managers in each of the departments to update current information with the announcements and add details to help attract more candidates. The department continues to explore the digitization of its files, policies, and procedures through scheduled demos and various human resource information system vendors. The department anticipates proposing a final vendor to the general manager by the end of the summer. In addition, staff continues to revamp its recruitment efforts in hopes of attracting the best possible candidates out there. Jackie continues to lead our collaborative efforts in the community impact with various stakeholders in the county. Some of our current community impact collaborations include continuing to work with Yuba County Office of Education and Marysville Joint Unified School District on the Career Technical Education Program. In the past few years, they have helped revolutionize the traditional classroom setting, preparing students for employment and advancement in their desired career field. We're also spearheading a collaborative effort with local human resource managers and the workforce readiness team at Beale Air Force Base to address barriers spouses of incoming military face when trying to find employment in Yuba County. We continue to collaborate with water districts on conservation ideas during our current drought. And in another undertaking, Jackie brought together Yuba Water, Say Love, and the city of Marysville to work on sprucing up the historic Marysville Cemetery by spraying weeds and laying gravel. We also reached out to the California State Parks Boating and Waterways regarding a grant on life jackets, which was approved for 60 assorted sizes for the Yuba Water Agency and Yuba County Health and Human Resources loaner stations. 3 loaner stations have been stocked at Dark Day and Cottage Creek boat launching stations, as well as Lake Francis. Each loaner station will be included on the Boating and Waterway website. The Blue Zones Project is a community-wide evidence-based approach to improve the health and well-being of the communities. Through Adventist Health, the Yuba Sutter area has been selected to become a Blue Zone certified community. Mandy Nix is working with Blue Zone staff to have the agency become a Blue Zones project approved worksite. The state legislature has enacted a record of $308 billion state budget, which Governor Newsom is expected to sign soon. The budget enacted by the legislature last Wednesday included several significant energy items, which were released just days before they were voted on. While we don't have any concerns with those elements of the budget, we're closely evaluating them to determine whether there are any potential opportunities for the agency. Our staff and consultants remain engaged as the legislature and administration are continuing negotiations over billions of dollars in additional spending that will be included in budget trailer bills focused on natural resources, water and drought response spending. The budget will be finalized later this summer. Communications and community relations. I did an interview with a reporter from the National Journal who's writing about forest health and the implementation of all those federal dollars awarded to the Yuba watershed. I was also interviewed by Dale Kassler of the Sacramento Bee, providing some background and explanation about water transfers in the Yuba Accord. We haven't seen a story result from either of those interviews yet. I was interviewed by Jenny Splitter, a freelance writer who works for an online newsletter focused on climate, farming, food science, and things like that. She wrote a story about the Foothill Waters Coalition and their efforts to get ag water supplied to North Yuba Water District. Some of our actions at the last board meeting were highlighted in an Appeal Democrat story, as well as on Yubanet. And the Appeal did a really nice job of clarifying how the loan to the county for the CalPERS payment is a win-win and a savings for taxpayers. So that was greatly appreciated. The Appeal also covered our Lunch and Learn webinar about the Hallwood Fish Habitat Project, which had nearly 100 registrations and almost 50 people participating live. Our next board meeting is on July 19th. And which will also include an ABP committee and communications committee meeting. That's all I have.
Any questions from the board?
I have one. So let's back up to the Rice's fire just for a second. What would be the absolute worst case scenario and how exposed would we be? When I look at Colgate, seems like I'm just seeing more rocks instead of burnable fuel. But what do you think?
Yeah, we've actually had a situation. Arnold reminded us, Arnold Talima's one of our operators, been here a long time. He reminded us of the incident, I think it was 2008 or 2010, where he actually spent the night at Colgate Powerhouse during a wildfire that kind of surrounded the area. You're right, Don, it's basically concrete, steel and rock in that area. I think the biggest impact we could see is smoke. I think you're fairly safe in the powerhouse, especially if you're actually in the powerhouse and the 3rd floor underground. But one of the reasons we did evacuate is just, smoke, and not that you'd actually be asphyxiated by it, but it's just a nuisance. And then why put someone in a hazard that, can be easily mitigated by setting up the control room in Narrows too. So to answer your question, the powerhouse is generally a safe place during a wildfire, but we do evacuate when we can.
But other than personnel, how about the infrastructure and just the possibility of just shutting down things, power lines and et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, if for whatever reason, the 230,000 volt line, well, let me back up. The 60,000 volt line, or at least one of the lines that leaves Colgate, the one that goes to Grass Valley and to like Allegheny and Downeyville and Sierra City, that line actually burned and was disconnected from the grid. And there was power outages in Nevada and Sierra counties and part of Yuba County. However, there's like, I think 5 60,000 volt lines that leave that substation. So the rest of them can carry power and take the demand. So that was the only transmission facility that PG&E has that was damaged by the fire. So, I don't know if that's 99% or 95% of the megawatts that are needed by PG&E that are created at Colgate were dispersed. So with all that said, the critical piece of infrastructure and what we mitigated around last week is the 230,000 volt line. The line that there's two lines that leave Colgate that go to portions of the valley, one by Oroville and one by Rio Oso. Those are the critical pieces that could go down and could cause us to have to shut down. And shutting down just means loss of opportunity, revenue opportunity. The water is backed up in New Bullard's Bar, and then if it was a shutdown for a significant period of time, we would have to deliver some water through New Bullard's Bar Dam to Englebright. But really, we would have operational continuity except for the generation of electrons.
How about Narrows?
In this particular fire, Narrows was well out of the pathway of the fire and wasn't threatened, and it remained completely operational with scheduled megawatts, scheduled water delivery. Everything was fine there. I think one of your questions was, what is the risk of our facility actually burning? And yes, it's concrete and steel, but there are flammable things in the powerhouse, and portions of the generators are flammable. So yes, you could have a fire, but it's more likely that there's a fire in a powerhouse caused by something in the powerhouse than an actual wildfire threat.
Say there was a major fire in Narrows area, what would happen?
Very similar situation. I mean, as long as the transmission line stayed intact, the unit would stay online delivering water. If the unit separated from the grid, just like a lightning strike that happens quite frequently. A lightning strike hits a line and it causes the unit to separate from the grid. There's backup water delivery valves, backup protection that protects the unit and delivers water. And then when the condition's safe, whether it's after a lightning strike and the line's restored, or it's after a fire and people can get back to the plant and put it back online, things are back to normal.
Okay, thanks.
Any additional questions or comments from the board? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to board member reports. Brent, we'll start with you.
No report today. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Charlie, any report today?
Just to compliment the staff on the megawatt choosing when to generate, when not to. It's been a tremendous income boost to us.
Thank you. Andy?
I'd like the board to put together a recognition for the people involved in the transfer of the control to Narrows from Colgate, and also a little further expansion on the rest of the story on what they did, and have it signed by all members of the board. Is that possible?
Yeah, we can make that happen.
Okay.
Thank you. Don?
Thanks to the Hadamia Group for coming up with their report, and looks like there's some real positive things that could potentially happen. So I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you. And Seth? Okay. I don't have any report today either, so we'll take a short 5 to 10 minute break, and then we have closed session as listed on the agenda. Okay, we are returning from closed session. There is nothing to report out. The meeting is adjourned. Just a reminder to the board that we have a special meeting over at the F Street location as soon as folks can get over there. Thank you.